And everybody, welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
And we're playing Sky Fantasy Football, James.
And we're about to make possibly the biggest decision of the season. And Suj starts by saying, James, done no planning, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I had other things on my mind, which was primarily the FA Cup. And I knew we were recording this pod. And I knew that the patrons or just regular listeners were going to send in some outstanding questions on Twitter. And I also had taken plenty of notes in the last podcast that we did last week for SkyFF with Luke, which was really good. So if you haven't had a chance to listen back to that for whatever reason, you can still go back and have a listen. It's still worth listening to because we did talk a bit about Overhaul. So I'm ready to absorb your knowledge, James. I'm ready to absorb it and then copy your team and then crack on. Having said that, I have more transfers than you coming up.
How many transfers have you got and what's your rank?
19.
Nice.
I had a real yo-yo of a week in terms of rank. So I started the week at about 2,600, which I thought was okay. It was fairly decent. I rose as high as 2,000. So on, let me just put up the team. On Saturday, I captained Son, which worked out okay, 20-pointer.
Sunday,
I captained
Son.
Why, when I go on the filters, is it giving me Saturday is showing me Robertson, Diaz, Grealish, Son, and Salah?
I have no idea, mate. This is the Sky app. Don't worry too much about that.
Yeah, it's not giving me the right days and the right players.
I'm guessing you had a rubbish captain Saturday.
Yeah. Who played on Saturday?
All the other players that you just said. Grealish against Villa. I mean, Salah was Sunday as well. You sure you clicked on the right day, mate? Are you even on the right week?
I'm on Saturday. I'm in game week 22, which is the week that's just gone.
Okay.
And it's not letting me click any further. It's bizarre. It's definitely on Saturday. So Monday, for example, it's giving me Antonio and Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
That's the week before.
That's next week, isn't it? It's giving you for next week.
But then it doesn't normally show you the previous week's points.
Oh, don't worry about the bloody Sky app. But yeah, it's giving you what day the players are playing next week rather than this week. You need to go back a week and then it'll probably tell you.
Anyway, I had Stuart Dallas and Son as my captains on Monday and Sunday. And I probably captained Salah or Fernandez or Ruben Diaz or something on the no, I captained Antonio. That's what I did. I remember us being differential.
That went well, didn't it?
Yeah, I went from 2,600 down to 2,000, back to 2,600 after the Leeds game, which was pretty bonkers. So I don't know what the yo-yo is all about, to be honest with you. But
there was other players on Sunday that returned really well, specifically people like Gundogan and stuff. Be obviously a good differential. Salah still scored. City did well. Anybody had Werner, bought him in, couple of assists, might have bought him in for a couple of captaincies, maybe.
Yeah.
A few people would have bought him Rudiger. That didn't go quite so well.
I ended on 81 points, so I don't know. Not great.
Well, I had 73, and I'd probably classify it as my worst game week of the season.
Wow.
So in terms of rank, it's got to be, I mean, certainly at this stage is a bad score for the week. So I've dropped to 126th overall. I have 15 transfers left and very prepared to tell you my plans because I can't win this game now with 15 transfers in that rank. I don't think. But I'm going for it.
Nice. So we are in the middle of Overhaul. FPL players will know this is wildcard time, but it's a fixed time for this. Can I just make one shout out before we get into this Overhaul talk and planning and what have you? One of the first podcasts we did about Sky Fantasy Football was when we got Paul on, Sky player in FPL, to explain the rules to us, basically as layman. And the reason we did that was because he had a season in FPL where he had a team that was his Sky rules team. He basically followed all of Sky Fantasy Football's rules in FPL. I think he finished like 42nd or 24th or something ridiculous.
40-something in FPL.
Yeah, top 100. Overall. He's got a team this season. I noticed he tweeted it the other day. It's like 3,000 or something.
He's
in
smashing
FPL.
It again. Yeah.
Again, with the Sky rules team.
Yeah, but he's below us. He's below us in Sky.
So yeah, I just was fascinated that it's happened again, that he's using Sky rules in FPL, which basically does restrict you off from a lot of the tinkering and psychological oddities that we put ourselves through in FPL by locking you off a little bit. And it's ended up working quite well for him again. I don't know what there is to read into that, but
To be fair, I've probably just done Paul a massive disservice because behind me, he's probably not behind you.
No, that's true. He's definitely ahead of me. But I just found that fascinating to see how that was doing well again as we go into Overhaul.
Do you have any idea what you're doing with this?
No.
Okay, fine.
I mean, I say no. There are some givens that are bog standard. So Diaz is staying in for me.
Yeah.
Martinez is staying in for me. Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah, Harry Kane, probably Jack Grealish as well are staying in for me. Stuart Dallas may stay in for me because I've got no other Leeds coverage. And so then I'm just talking about Antonio, Saka, Robertson. What do I do with those spaces? I'd like to get Kevin De Bruyne back. Rumours are obviously that he might be back.
I want you to stop because of all the players you've just said so far. Only 2 of them are in my team.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're going to go completely left field with this.
I wouldn't say it's left field in any reasoning at all. I'm going to attempt to try and finish first, even though I don't think I can. Although it's worth saying, as very much as the guys said on Hub on Sunday, like until tomorrow night when the FA Cup games are finished and we've got an idea what that midweek schedule will look like and the blank weekend and all that kind of stuff, I can't be locking a team in. I can tell you now what the draft is I did on Monday night that I haven't even looked at since. I think the headline on that in terms of what I've drafted so far is I've got 7 Manchester City players.
Okay, that's interesting to see.
That's my intention in terms of how to try and make a gain in the near period. What that means for me with only 15 transfers is it means that when City's run ends, I'm going to have to come off quite a few of them, and that's going to burn a few transfers for me.
You're going to do your transfers in waves rather than drip feeding 1 a week. You might do 4 in a week and then 3 in another week.
The way I see it, as it stands, from sort of game week 30 onwards, the maneuver for gains is not going to be what we normally expect over that final period because there's a good chance that we're going to have possibly even no doubles beyond sort of game week 28, depending on what Tottenham do in Europe, basically, and what happens in these cup results and when they rearrange games. But odd games like Villa versus Everton, it might get put into match week 27 or match week 28. It looks like the precedent's been set by these Burnley, Fulham, and Leeds Southampton rearrangements that they want to get them in early. So in terms of the actual gains, normally you pick an Overhaul team at this stage, and I think the consensus is I'd like to leave that dead for at least 4 weeks. To be honest, I'm looking at mine at the moment. I think I'm probably leaving it dead for about 10 days and then making moves because I feel like the gains are more going to be now rather than later on. Now, obviously, I don't want to be blowing 10 transfers in the next 4 to 5 match weeks, but I'm definitely keen to blow a few because that's where the gains are. Is you take City, we all fear City rotation a bit, and obviously Champions League is restarting. Before the second leg of the Champions League, I think Manchester City are going to play 8 league games.
Wow.
So it's now. It's not later on, it's now. So I want to power into them. I think most people are going to go sort of 3 or 4 Man City players. Now, 7's possibly over the top, and it obviously leaves me very slight from a captaincy perspective. But that's what I want to try and do early on to make gains. But there's certain things that happen with the cup results, and I explained this last week, that it's probably a case of what do I need or what do I want, and then fit in as many City players as I can as a strategy. That's my idea at the moment. And it might be that the cup results tonight, tomorrow, and so on completely throw that out the window. I even love at the moment with the going in for City is that there's escapes all the way through. So in match week 26, they play West Ham. It's 12:30 kickoff, so I even see the team. And they've got like 4 for 2 over many teams. I then think they're most likely to play Wolves on a Tuesday. Then there's another escape. And then the Fulham game in match week 27 is 95% going to be on a Saturday. And then there's more escapes. So when I escape after the Fulham game, there's other teams that are probably going to play 3 times before City play again. And this is the period where I see all the gains and me using transfers. And do you know what? It might well be that in the final 8 game weeks or so that I'm running on 5 transfers that will book me in for needing to cover the odd captaincy or covering for injuries, and that might be it. I feel like the period for me in my position, and this will be different for other people, I feel like I need to just swing at it now.
Interesting. Can you do me a favor? Can you pause Zoom and Zencaster for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Back, James. Sorry for the minor interlude. This is the nightmare of homeschooling, mate. I'd never make it as a teacher. I think I would. That's the one job I think I'd really struggle to do because I just want to kick him in the head. Students, I'd just be too tempted to want to do that. Anyhow, so this 7 Manchester City players, are you going to rename your team Man City All Stars or something?
No, because I'll be getting rid of many of them after match week 28, I should imagine. At the moment, and again, this is a draft I did Monday night, and I'm not even going to look at it till after Barnsley Chelsea tomorrow night again, and then Friday morning I'll know what my team is subject to team news. But at the moment, I'm Edison, Stones, Cancelo, Diaz, Gundogan, Rodri, Sterling.
Okay, with a view that Sterling could go quite easily to De Bruyne.
Well, the way I've set it up, that, or more likely sort of Harry Kane and stuff. My 4 other players I got in the draft, I don't mind saying it. Bruno Fernandes, I can't ignore because it's 2 great captaincy days for Manchester United. And there's probably a third with the Crystal Palace game. We now know 99% will go in that midweek of match day 26. Bamford, there's 2 captaincies there coming up. Leeds versus Wolves, Leeds versus Southampton. He's probably one that's going to stick around for me. I might need him versus Fulham in match week 29.
He's a decent price, so I could understand that.
The other 2 are more annoying. And at the moment, I'm leaving it with 3.4 million in the bank to be able to get away from a midfielder to get Harry Kane. At the moment, I've got James Ward-Prowse and Jorginho. And I suspect that could change. James Ward-Prowse could easily become Danny Ings, could easily become Yannick Vestergaard. Jorginho could easily become Antonio Rudiger or Cesar Azpilicueta. Those are probably the 6 names under consideration. There's quite a few names you'll notice.
Because you need Chelsea and Southampton coverage.
Well, to be honest, it's looking for me that I need Chelsea for Monday. There's a couple of the Mondays is a massive headache. So Monday we've got Chelsea v Newcastle, West Ham versus Sheffield United. Ex-West Ham United employee who's quite ITK on West Ham at the moment is suggesting that Antonio has tight hamstrings and is a doubt for the game on Monday. I cannot be starting with him under that circumstance.
I wouldn't be starting with him anyway, I think.
Knowing that they've got difficult games afterwards. So, yeah, Tottenham, he could do well. Dennis, Man City. And you could even argue there's an escape after that because they're now not going to have a midweek fixture in match week 26. But it makes me want to come back to them probably more like when they play Arsenal in match week 29 or so. I can't be starting with him as the only player from Monday. And the reality is, other than that, I don't want a West Ham or a Chelsea player. But I think from the start in the first week, and for me as well, there's no Salah in my team at the moment. My take on Salah is I'll go to him when they play Sheffield United on Sunday the 28th if I need to. And it's a case of make a decision then of whether I go to Salah or Kane, who are both at the moment playing that day. I look at Salah and I go, I'm not going to captain him against Leicester. The Everton game on the 20th, he's clearly going to be the most captained, but I'm not big on the fixture. Dennis, Sheffield United and Tottenham play Burnley the same day. So it's toss a coin in terms of who I go to then. But if the chance I'm going to want to go to Kane, I think, with the fixtures that Tottenham have got after that, which is likely to be a midweek fixture, plus then Crystal Palace, is likely to be 3 captaincies. Then after that for Salah, he's got Chelsea. And the way it's going to look, it's either probably going to be, the preference for Tottenham or Bruno Fernandes if they land on the same night as Manchester United. Then Fulham, he'll be popular, no doubt. But then it's Wolves and then probably blank. So I'm looking at Salah and going, I possibly, if I started with him, there's a fair opportunity that I'd only captain him once, up to sort of match week 30 or so, possibly beyond, because they play Arsenal in match week 30 as well. That's a huge chunk of money. And I'm looking for something a little bit different across the template, whereas I know he's going to be sort of 70 to 80% owned or so, Mo Salah. So he's the one I'm really looking to go without. And it might be, like I said, I get to that Sunday 28th, say if Kane's not fit for Tottenham, I probably don't want to go Son, and therefore I do buy Salah instead, for example. But not going Liverpool at all gives me a massive headache on Saturday the 20th, because the other games are shit. It's Burnley versus West Brom, which you could then say makes a case for Nick Pope.
The games are bad. It's the teams are bad, because Fulham at home to Sheffield United. For Fulham, it's a decent fixture, but you don't want a Fulham player.
No,
there are good games that you could predict a winner in.
I mean,
Burnley at home to West Brom, but
if you take that Fulham Sheffield United fixture and Burnley West Brom, there's only two players I would even remotely consider from those four teams, and that's Nick Pope, and the other one's Tosin Adarabioyo, who I mentioned as a differential pick last week at 5.2 million, who actually playing for Fulham in some of these shit games is capable of potentially picking up passing tier, although Sheffield United actually is probably not one of them. The only other fixture then, other than Liverpool, Everton, Southampton v Chelsea. And that's another thing that draws me towards a Chelsea player for the Monday night against Newcastle, is that actually it might be two captaincies for me and then bin.
And you feel obviously very clearly that that Jorginho is first choice.
No, I don't. I'm not. Okay. I'm clear that he's first choice. Yeah. I'm clear
a regular
on that.
starter for Chelsea, and that's why you're going down that route.
I'm clear that Jorginho, Rudiger, and Azpilicueta currently are part of the first choice team. It doesn't mean to say that they can't be rotated, but they're certainly they've played all the games under Thomas Tuchel so far, so you assume that. Azpilicueta is probably the best choice. I'm just a little bit concerned that I think at any point, and the swing might be the more difficult fixtures, that they go to a back four. Now, Azpilicueta probably gets preference over Reece James, but that's a headache I don't need.
Yeah, of course.
So it's probably going to come down to Rudiger versus Jorginho for me, and it's going to be very short term, possibly a captaincy for 2 games, and then get rid immediately. Might honestly be what I'm looking at. And it could be then that I move to Brighton, because obviously one of the things at the moment is I'm not starting with a Brighton player. By that point, which is before they play Palace on the Monday, I'll have more information about what's happening. Now, we're going to find out tonight if they're going to play in that midweek of 26 or not. It's not a certainty, though, even if they beat Leicester this evening, because they might decide to put Brighton Newcastle in another random midweek, because the precedent's already been set that basically they can put games on at 6 o'clock and doesn't interfere with Europe.
Yeah.
So Brighton Newcastle's one of them. They might think, am I that bothered about it? Oh, we'll put Brighton Newcastle on a 6 p.m. on a midweek day. And it might be somewhere random, that's somewhere different. I really don't think, by the way, it will be, I mean, Brighton Newcastle wouldn't be, but there's a few other. Villa Everton is a combination where we've been a bit confused. Why has that not been put into match week 25, whereas say Leeds Southampton has been? I don't think anything to get added to that week. The reason I don't think anything to get added to that week is Tottenham are playing in Europa League at 5 o'clock on the Wednesday. The reason they're playing on the Wednesday is because UEFA won't allow teams from the same city to play at home on the same night. And because Arsenal have the higher coefficient, that's why Tottenham are playing at home on the Wednesday. Now, interestingly, that also means that could happen for Tottenham between match weeks 27 and 28 as well. So there's
Arsenal
no gap.
At home again, are they?
Well, if Arsenal and Tottenham both go through in the last 32, and then they're both drawn at home in the same leg in the last 16, it means that Tottenham...
Your game will have to be on Wednesday.
It could be at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday again, which at the moment with no fans is no big deal, right? They'd be going mental if there was fans going with that kickoff time in London. But that could happen again. And in terms of fixtures for March for Tottenham, they're still likely to end up with all Sunday fixtures, because the fixtures are probably going to need to be announced before the Europa League last 32 is completed. So Tottenham will probably still get scheduled Sundays, but Tottenham in Europe could be what's blocking the announcement of certain fixtures going on a Wednesday at 5 o'clock. It could even be a Tuesday 5 o'clock, for example.
Or 6 o'clock, whichever.
So
the Premier League prefers 6s, doesn't it? So.
It would be 6 to make sure it finishes before, because every Champions League game in the last 16 over the 4 midweeks, every single one is an 8 o'clock kickoff.
Right. Okay.
So they can do what they've done with Leeds Southampton, put a 6 o'clock game there, and it's not going to bother UEFA. UEFA don't care. They'll be like, yeah, that's fine. So there's no risk of clash there. So we could get Brighton Newcastle was a great example. It doesn't necessarily go into the midweek of 26. He might end up being 27. He might end up being 28. It could even end up being the other side of 30 possibly, because it doesn't matter. They could play it in 34, 35 if they need to. And it might be that Sky and BT would rather have a minimum amount in 26 to give them more future games potential in the future. What we can say about that midweek in 26 is all the European teams who have a game to rearrange is going to go in there. So like Crystal Palace, Man United is now a certainty. If Leicester win tonight, Burnley v Leicester, almost a certainty. Tottenham are going to go into that midweek. At the moment, there's 3 possibilities of what fixture it could be. It could be Fulham, Villa, Southampton. And depending on what they choose, obviously opens up the potential for other fixtures. So if they choose Tottenham v Villa to go in that midweek, then obviously Everton ain't going to play Villa, but Everton might play West Brom. So the teams that I'm really conscious of that I don't have in the draft at the moment that's bothering me the most is not Tottenham, because I know that I'll go to one. Ideally, Harry Kane, probably in 26. I just think there's too big a game to be had on the Man City 4 fixtures first. Possibly 5 if I decide I don't want to get Kane for the Burnley fixture. There's too many games for me not to slam into City at the start. The 2 that I'm really concerned about are Villa and Everton. So I keep coming back to Calvert-Lewin. He's annoying me. But he's another one. I'm looking at it at the moment going, Fulham at home this weekend, great. But I'm not captaining him because we've got Bruno against West Brom. Then it's Man City. I'm not captaining him. Then he plays Liverpool. Weirdly enough, he could cover me a captaincy there, but that's not ideal. No. Then there's the Monday fixture against Southampton, which at the moment, my priority is more Southampton. So I'm likely to have some Southampton coverage in the worst case scenario. Then if Everton don't play that midweek, I'll have wished that I hadn't started with any of them.
Yeah, so it's one game at the beginning, one game at the end of that 4-game run. It doesn't seem sensible.
Villa I know will play in 26. That's a certainty. In that midweek, they'll play one of Everton, Tottenham, Sheffield United. Certainty. But they start with Brighton on the Saturday. Then it's Leicester on the Sunday. Leeds on the Saturday. And what I'm even thinking with them at the moment, we say someone like Grealish. If I get that Man City team against West Ham on Saturday the 27th, and I've got a player missing, or suddenly by that point I've got a Man City player that's got injured, then I can make a move. Look at Grealish or Ollie Watkins I'm really keen on. And I like the idea of even to go to Martinez. So what I'm possibly thinking at the moment is after City play Wolves on the Tuesday, if Villa play the Wednesday, Thursday, which is most likely, come off Edison there, go to Martinez. That also opens up more money for me as well. I mean, there's so many things going on. It's so dependent on what happens in the cup games over the next couple of nights. Because if something really surprising happens, like say Barnsley beat Chelsea, that's really going to throw the thinking out in terms of even like, I think that's the sort of thing that make people second think about Mo Salah, for example, if then Liverpool and Chelsea don't have that game in the 26th. But I'm not sure we should be that bothered about that fixture anyway, because you're probably captaining someone else, be it a Bruno or a Kane, depending on which night Liverpool gets scheduled. He's so up in the air, honestly. But I'd probably say I'm narrowed down to about 18, 19 names overall in terms that I'm interested in.
I just realised, having a look at the stats here, that Ollie Watkins is more expensive than Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised by that. I would have expected Jack Grealish to be more. So you can't even make a decision or distinction between them on one's really expensive, I'll get the cheaper one, because there's only 0.1 in it between them. But Ollie Watkins at 8.6 and Grealish at 8.5. I almost feel like I'd rather go Ollie Watkins.
I think right now, the majority of people would say they'd rather go Ollie Watkins. The problem is you've got Bamford, Salah, Kane, Calvert-Lewin, possibly Danny Ings, and others that you're really interested in the forward area, whereas the midfield area is a problem, isn't it? We're saying right now we're not going to go Antonio. So Fernandes is going to be yes for nearly everybody. Probably at the moment, because the fixtures, Gundogan's going to interest a lot of people. Phil Foden will interest some as well.
Yeah.
But there's not many options in that midfield area. I've got, like I said, James Ward-Prowse and Jorginho at the moment. I quite like the idea of starting with a 3-5-2 because it's them midfield players that I want to move away from, and almost starting with the 4-3-3. Say I start with a 4-3-3 with, say, Fernandes, Gundogan and Rodri. If I want to move Rodri, I'm kind of struggling. I'd be forced into Grealish, which is it's not a huge problem. But that's not part of my thinking at the moment. I want that to be a choice when I get there, rather than that having to be the choice that I make. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
But I like the idea of starting with 4 in midfield if you're looking to make early moves. If you're not, fine. I know the hub guys were warning about the 5-3-2, and I completely understand that, because the problem with the 5-3-2 is there's a good chance your most expensive player is going to be Ruben Diaz, and then if you want to move that to a forward or a midfielder, you're potentially
where are you going to find the money?
You're limited. You're limited what you can do if you spend all the money.
Yep.
I think.
Been there, seen that, done that. Got the T-shirt earlier in the season, so I get
listen,
that.
We're not Sky experts, but I definitely feel like leaving money in the bank for moves is a really good idea at the moment. Like I said, I got like 3.5, 3.8 million sitting in the bank at the moment as part of the plan. That's easier said than done, because the instinct in you is always to spend the money. The other thing to note about the 26 rearrangements is we are probably not going to know by deadline what's going in there, in terms of, we can make assumptions on Brighton and Newcastle if they win tonight, but generally we won't know. We won't know. We can say 95% certain that the European team games will move into there, other than Tottenham's is an unknown what it will be. City could play Southampton instead of Wolves, but I think it's highly likely it will be Wolves, because they can fit that on the Tuesday night. And there's a certain combination of results where, unless they move other games, they wouldn't be able to even put a game on Tuesday night. That would be, say, if Brighton lost tonight is one example.
Indeed. So, can you give us a rundown on what are the awkward days that people like me who are not massively engrossed in the fixtures or haven't yet? I am going to put the work in before Friday, and we will record Sky Extra Time for the patrons, by which time I have my overhaul ready to rock and roll. But one of the things is like, okay, I need to make sure I've got my captaincy coverage. Which are the awkward days, in your opinion, between, say, now and the end of match week 27, which is, we don't fully know yet, but
27, we can only really guess until we know the full lineup for the FA Cup fixtures. City and United is probably going to be on a Sunday, I would think. And then City probably play Southampton on the Wednesday after, and then Fulham the Saturday after that. Basically, awkward days for me personally is probably going to be any day where Man City aren't playing. So the awkward ones: Saturday you've got Man City playing. Yeah, Sunday's Fernandes. I personally, I think Monday's awkward, because I don't want a Chelsea or West Ham player in my planning. So I think what a lot of people end up doing is going with Chelsea defensive and leaving it dead, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. I just look further ahead and think, well, beyond Newcastle, that fixture list ain't great. I'm not sure that I'm so keen. I'm not sure that the pass. It's easy to look at the games and go, oh, well, under Tuchel, they're all hitting passing tier. Well, yeah, no shit. They played Wolves, Burnley, Tottenham, and Sheffield United. There's no guarantee that that's going to continue when they start playing a pressing team like Southampton, or play a Manchester United or an Everton, for example. No guarantee. So, but I think a lot of people end up dead in a Chelsea player, probably defensively.
Yeah, that's probably my strategy.
I have a Rudiger as Peliquet. As I said, that's fine. I don't like it. Wednesday, you've got coverage City. Then you've got the 2 Leeds single game days, which kind of makes having one of them feel really important. You don't want a Wolves player. You could make a case like, I'm looking to have Ward-Prowse, Vestergaard, or Ings when Leeds play Southampton, which would cover that one. But the fact it's going to be 2 Leeds, it feels a bit like the Arsenal, the 2 games. You probably want to start with
one. So for you, Bamford, Dallas, whoever it may be, start with them, so that gives you the coverage.
Yeah, Paul McNulty was right what he said on Hub, in terms of when it comes to it, the chances are that a lot of those captaincies, in spite of Dallas's haul the other night, are likely to go on Patrick Bamford. That's the way I want to go as well. He's still capable of hitting shots here. Was lively the other night again. The only other name I'd throw out from Leeds as a potential consideration is Rafinha, who he looks a top player. He's 6.8 million, Rafinha.
Yeah, I've got him in a draft at the moment.
If you didn't have Bamford Dallas, you'd be looking at him and going, "Oh, that solves a midfield problem." The issue with Leeds will be after they play Villa, so a little bit like City, they've got 4-for-2s over a lot of people. So I don't even mind if someone wants to go Bamford and Dallas again, for example.
Yeah.
Then there's a good chance you'll want to come off, because then it swings 4-for-2s the other way before Leeds play Wolves in Fulham on the FA Cup weekend of match week 29. That's why I probably only want one. And there's a good chance the one I want is going to be dead and it just stays in Patrick Bamford. But if I see enough big gains elsewhere, I mean, it might be, for example, over that period, it's possible, depending on the way the fixtures fall, that Danny Ings could play 4 or 5 times in between sort of 2 Leeds games.
Right.
But again, I need to keep like the options open in terms of what I'm thinking and what I want to do with it. But it's likely to be Bamford for me for those 2 Leeds days. The Liverpool one, the 20th, is going to be awkward for me, obviously, if I don't go Salah. And I think it's literally looking at that day and the fact that I play Sheffield United afterwards is what means that many will go with Mo Salah. So for the majority, that won't be awkward. Then you've got City on the Sunday and Fernandes against Newcastle. You'd certainly make a case, actually, Fernandes against Newcastle rather than City against Arsenal. Fernandes will cover you anyway.
Yeah.
Palace Brighton, Monday 22nd.
Looks like a skit to me. Melt in your mouth.
It does and it does and it doesn't. So they start with Villa. Then they've got Palace on the Monday, which again, they kind of fall into this. Man City play 3 games before City play once. So I'm even thinking, if I have Rodri for 3 games and then dunk, that's not ideal. But the way this season's going, I'm going to pick up the fucking injury and end up buying Lewis Dunk on the Monday anyway, I think.
Yeah.
My intention is to skip it. What's interesting is they play West. Well, straight afterwards, particularly if they beat Leicester tonight in the Cup, it's likely to be Palace the Monday, West Brom the Saturday, Newcastle the Tuesday, which means you're getting it as a 3-for-1 over a lot. Now, because it's the second Monday, ideally you should start with one rather than book that in as a transfer. I'm not convinced. One notable thing to mention on Brighton, for me, it would be Lewis Dunk or Sanchez are the only 2 I'd consider. There's an injury doubt on Webster at the moment. I know Sanchez being quite popular because he's 6 million as a goalkeeper. You just need to be conscious not to spend all your money. If you go down that route, I would leave yourself at least enough money to be able to go to Martinez at any point. In the games where they've performed really well, and they've obviously been picking up clean sheets recently before the Burnley draw, their possession numbers have dropped down massively. And one of the attractions about Brighton players in the past, people like Dunk, Ben White, have been the potential for the passing tiers to go on top of the odd clean sheet. So the fixtures still look great from the perspective of the clean sheets, but Brighton might be altering the way they're playing at the moment. Problem is, those 3 games, Palace, West Brom, Newcastle, they could still hit passing tier in all of them if it goes a certain way. But it seems possession at the moment is not good for Brighton. The way they counter-attack, etc., is working so much better without the ball. It's going to annoy me, Lewis Dunk. I'll almost go Lewis Dunk rather than Sanchez because I would look at it and go, if it's Palace, West Brom, Newcastle was a potential 3-for-1 over people, then there's every chance to sort of 2 clean sheets, 2 passing tiers out of that. And
I feel like
be worth it. But it's probably only one captaincy.
Looking at my draft squad, which isn't like by any means set in stone, Rudiger gives me good coverage for the first 2 games for Chelsea, Newcastle, Southampton, which gives me 1 captaincy. And then the Southampton game is on a Saturday, and then Lewis Dunk is on a Monday. So whilst Chelsea would then play Manchester United and possibly Liverpool as the double, they've got Crystal Palace, West Brom, and Newcastle. That's a trade that I feel is worth it. Like getting off Rudiger for United and Liverpool and getting on Dunk for Crystal Palace, West Brom, and Newcastle seems like a fair transfer.
But then the case for argument is you probably should put that in at the start.
But then I don't have Rudiger as coverage for the Newcastle game for captaincy.
Well, I get that.
So this is where I
would look at that and think, if it's going to be 2 Chelsea captaincy for me, is it worth doing that first? So it's effective 4-for-1, then make the transfer, and it's 3-for-1, and it's 3-for-1, and I'm not going back. As in, if I move then from Brighton, I'm then going to another team. I'm not going back to Chelsea, for example. It might be. Sorry,
explain that. I lost you there. You said you'd book in Dunk first and Rudiger second.
No, so if I'd said took Rudiger for captaincy against Newcastle and Southampton, then move.
I don't know if I'd captain him against Southampton necessarily.
Well, for me, no, most people won't. But for me, if I go no Salah, that's probably going to be the best one for me.
Yeah, it might be for me as well, based on I've got no Salah in my draft.
So then it's effective 4-for-1. then move to Dunk on the Monday, is effective 3-1 over Rudiger. But it's not a move back to Rudiger afterwards.
No.
It's a move to someone else.
Yeah,
correct.
Understood. So that's what I might plan into my schedule for that. So that would potentially cover me off Brighton Crystal Palace, which is Monday the 22nd of February. Then we've got the Leeds Southampton single game day that we mentioned already. So if you're starting with a Leeds player, hopefully that will cover you off. City on the Saturday.
Well, you'll see the team as well. So there's the added bonus of that. Yeah, absolutely. Sunday.
I think West Ham are probably second to Burnley in teams that like to get slapped by City. So City on that day.
The thing is, you don't really get slapped by anyone, but it's a lock.
At the moment, we don't. But City.
It's a lock on for passing tiers for the defensive guys, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Sunday, Salah versus Sheffield United or Kane versus Burnley. Will be
I'll be on Harry Kane by then. I really want to get on Harry Kane by the West Ham game, if I'm honest with you. But
I think my preference in terms of moving to that then off of a Chelsea player or a Man City player, depending on how it looks for me, or actually probably just depends on bloody injuries, doesn't it? Is you're looking at Tottenham versus, or let's say Kane versus Burnley, then Aston Villa or Southampton, then Palace, and then possibly, the way it looks, possibly even a captaincy coverage against Arsenal, maybe on Sunday the 14th as well. Whereas Salah, I'm looking at Sheffield United, Chelsea, Fulham, Wolves. And I only see that being the captaincy in 2, whereas Kane would be 3. And that's probably what will influence it. And obviously, by that point, in terms of making a decision, we'll know. That's almost definite, because the March TV fixtures should get announced before that weekend. There's a good chance they'll get announced with like all the midweek for 26 fixtures as well. So my anticipation is that we won't factually know the dates for that midweek of match day 26 before the overhaul deadline. I expect to know almost everything up to match week 29 next week.
Right. And then the other awkward day that I can see on the horizon, the Everton Southampton game.
Yeah, so that's what talked about Calvert-Lewin coming to my head. But then it's part of me for going Southampton. It's Ward-Prowse or Vestergaard or whatever they decide to do coverage. And then Southampton have got that other midweek fixture. And the really interesting thing about Southampton is up to 29, irrespective of what fixtures do or don't move, on my fixture tracker, they've got the best run. And that's factoring at the moment that Man City's not in there. And you could say for a Vestergaard that Man City going in there is possibly worse, actually. But they've got Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds, Everton, probably City. It's possibly Tottenham, then Sheffield United, then probably Man City, then Brighton is how it's looking for them. That's a brilliant run. You're talking about Southampton possibly having 8 fixtures over that period. Is what it's
I don't see it as a brilliant run. I mean, Wolves at home, I agree, but then Chelsea is now difficult with Tuchel. Leeds, that's going to be an open shootout. Everton are better this season. City, Tottenham, okay, Sheffield United I can understand is a difficult picture, but I don't think it's as good as you're making out necessarly.
I think it's a really good run. I'm not saying pile into Southampton, but I think I want one. That's where at the moment, I oddly feel, although I know Villa and Everton are going to cause me problems, I almost feel like the way it's landing at the moment, the Southampton player is more of a priority for me than Villa or Everton.
Right.
I think there's possibly factoring things like I know I can move if I want to Bamford to a Watkins or Edison to Martinez, get Calvert-Lewin quite easily. It's probably part of my thinking. Like I said, the Calvert-Lewin one feels really influenced by that midweek of 26, whether they play in there or not. And they're highly likely to. I think I'll be gutted if I start with him and they don't. Right.
Shall we answer some Twitter questions, James?
Yeah, let's do that.
And before we do, just a shout out, if you're not a patron of ours, obviously, and you do think you want to be, we'll be releasing Sky Fantasy Football Extra Time on Friday, which will give a bit more of a rundown once the FA Cup fixtures have finished, and we'll have a slightly clearer picture on what's going to be happening in Game Week 27-28. That's a patron exclusive. head over to patreon.com.
I'll know my team on that podcast, and I will say what my team is on that podcast, unless we record the podcast and then
but that's not a good reason for people to sign up, mate.
And then we get fixture announcement afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to see what my team is, James's team, and avoid all the players that we've chosen, by all means, sign up to Patreon.
I suspect. I'm saying I've got 7 City in the draft at the moment. I suspect that come Friday, I will have to lose at least one of them. It's probably the way it's going to go. I don't want to, though.
We'll see. It's Valentine's Day at the weekend as well. So treat yourself. If you love yourself, treat yourself to a Planet FPL Patreon subscription. I don't think I could think of anything better to buy myself for Valentine's Day, James.
Or your missus.
Yeah. Yeah, you treat my missus to a Patreon subscription, and I'll have to find somewhere else to live, mate.
The shit we talk about on Patreon. If I treat her to a Patreon subscription, that's the end of your marriage, mate.
That's what I'm saying. I'll have to find somewhere else to live. Right. Let's go from the bottom all the way to the top. Stu at SkyFF is going without KDB a realistic option. So you've obviously gone with Sterling as your premium City player.
There's every chance I'll lose Sterling. He's one that's not a lock. I think the ones that are a lock for me to start with from City are Gundogan, Cancelo, Diaz, Stones. I think those 4 are a lock for me. The other 3, Ederson, Rodri and Sterling's a little bit more up in the air. In terms of De Bruyne, he's in light training. I don't see City wanting to rush him. City could play 3 games before he's back playing. I just don't think you can start with him at the moment.
Yeah.
He's not going to play on Saturday. I'd be amazed if he plays against Tottenham on Saturday. Certainly, I'd be amazed if he starts. I can't see them rushing him. He's in light training. It's a good chance he could still be 2 weeks away. City might play for 3 or 4 times before he's back.
Yeah, and that's part of the thinking behind leaving money in the bank. So my draft at the moment, which is not that exciting, but Pope in goal, Stones, Cancelo, Diaz, Rudiger, Gundogan, Grealish, Fernandes, Rafinha, Kane, Calvert-Lewin, Grealish or Gundogan I've got enough money in the bank to turn either of them into Kevin De Bruyne.
I can't see me going to De Bruyne at any point over these next 8 match weeks, subject to landing in positions that are unplanned for, such as injuries, suspensions, that kind of thing. I can't see it. That money that I'm looking to leave spare at the start is more for Kane at the moment.
Not so fantasy football. Giannis says, waiting for this for almost a week. No questions, just to say thank you in advance. No problem. Appreciate that. Mark, who I think is doing quite well in SkyFF, has got 2 questions.
It's just Mark.
It just says Mark. It's at Mark 913173886 because of the picture that he's got on his profile pic. He captained Cancelo and picked up 50 points off him. So I'm sure he's doing all right. Currently 123rd, says his bio. So he's above you, mate. He's doing all right.
All right, cool. He might not have updated it for a month. He might be 700.
Captaincy picks for the upcoming fixtures, which we've just been through. Any other good 4-for-2s or 3-for-1s that you want to point out?
City's obviously there. Leeds.
Southampton. Do you like Burnley? Burnley have got 3 in the 3 games, quite close succession at the start. Crystal Palace, Fulham, West Brom.
My argument against Nick Pope at the moment, just to cover him briefly, is you look at the first 3 fixtures and you go, Palace, Fulham, West Brom, potential to play in 26 midweek against Leicester as well. But if you go a Liverpool player, you are getting Nick Pope in, and there's a fair chance that you're not going to captain him between now and the FA Cup quarterfinals.
We don't really captain goalkeepers that often anyway. And if you've got other coverage...
But it's a handy position. But then I would look at that and think, okay, great. Nick Pope's got a great 3 fixtures. Yeah, true. Ederson's got 5 over the same period. So what am I that bothered about? That would be my take. However...
Ederson's got 4 if you include the Spurs game, no?
That's true. Sorry, 4.
4 for 4, yeah.
So, listen, the way City are playing, I'd still fancy him to outscore Nick Pope. And I would probably, if I go Ederson, I'd rather be left with Ederson up till the Fulham game, most likely. Or, like I said, I'd actually prefer to move to Martinez around about that match week 26 midweek, depending on how the fixtures fall. particularly say if Villa are going to play Sheffield United or Tottenham still in match week 29. That's worth noting as well, that Villa Tottenham could get added to 29 depending on certain cup results. Basically means Tottenham losing to Everton, Sheffield United beating Bristol City, and Southampton beating Wolves. But if those three things happen, then Villa Tottenham could be in 29 instead of Sheffield United, Villa, or Tottenham Southampton. That's about a 35% chance of happening.
Right.
Which I make a bit higher because I think Tottenham will get beat tonight, by the way. If I went Pope, I could use him as that captaincy coverage for Saturday the 20th. And then that kind of levels out as a 4v4 versus Ederson. But otherwise, I feel like there's a long period where I wouldn't captain him. If I had Pope, I'd captain him on that Saturday the 20th against West Brom over Rudiger, for example, or Ward-Prowse. I'd go with Pope. But for the majority of people who go Liverpool, there's no captaincy dates for him. You can say, oh, yeah, great, Fulham. You're still going to captain a Man City player. Unless you're petrified about the team.
I'm not getting a Liverpool player as it stands at the moment. So I think Pope might be an interesting shout there. But obviously, yeah, Burnley do have a three fixtures where a lot of teams have one at the start of the post-overhaul period. Sam, Guy, I mean, this is a difficult question, but you've heard James's answer. Optimal number of City to load up on and who? Well, I mean, they're all good value at the back. 3 defenders, Ederson's good, Gundogan, Sterling.
I think
explain Rodri a little bit because you obviously have gone with Rodri as well.
Passing tiers lots. I mean, look, the fixtures are more difficult. Tottenham, Everton, Arsenal, West Ham, even then Wolves, most likely Wolves over Southampton. They're still going to piss passing tier in all of them, I think. And he's capable of having like the Villa game where he's got the passing tier, the tackle, the assist. Because listen, if you pass the ball to a Man City player in a forward position, it could lead to a goal, right?
Yeah.
He's got man of the match in that one. In the West Brom game, he took a shot from long range to hit the bar. From set pieces, it only feels like Stones, Diaz, or Rodri are going to score. So he's good in the air at set pieces. We've seen him score aerially from set pieces before. So he's probably, to be honest, of those 7 City that I've got, I think the one I'm least convinced about having is Sterling. Yeah, and I think the main reason for that is I don't actually think I'd captain him, and I just feel like it's a lot of money to be using on a player that I won't captain. But I like the fact that there's an explosiveness about him that means he could have a purple patch, and not a lot of people will have him, and that's part of the thinking at the moment. I don't think that City players are going to get rotated. There's no doubt about it. All of them, except Ederson and possibly Diaz, are probably all likely to miss one of the next 5 games, for example. The Champions League fixture goes in there as well. But the Champions League fixture against Mönchengladbach is now being played, I think, in Budapest, in the Puskás Stadium in Hungary. And as I said, that second leg isn't until after they play Fulham. It's 8 league games. I just feel like, for me, that the consensus on the overhaul is cover your bases, cover that Brighton Palace, cover those Leeds players, etc. I just feel like this is a completely unique situation this year where I think transfers need to be used in the first few weeks. Whereas ordinarily I'd sit here and go, this is my team for 3 weeks at least. I ain't doing nothing unless I get an injury. And then templates evolve and move. And I just, for me, trying to look an advantage to still try and attempt to win the game, I feel that's the only way I can do it.
I can see myself using 5 or 7 transfers in the first 4 weeks comfortably. And I've got them to burn as well, so I don't see a problem with it. By talking about the City players there, James, we've basically covered off half the other questions because they literally are so much is about how many City, which City, KDB, Sterling, and so on and so on. But there are other questions that we're going to get into. So FPL Stefan Barnes and also the season keepers have asked us the similar question. Will you be targeting the Manager of the Month award with your third team or simply have a little fun with them instead? Stefan Barnes is the same. What's your strategy with your third team?
No, just to cover off the previous question, to clarify on the City, I'm not recommending that everybody gets 7 Man City players.
No, I mean, that's quite an extreme strategy.
I'm saying that that's possibly what I'm going to do. I think if you've got less than 4, you're probably losing. when City do well, is what I would say. On third teams, we've set up for our patrons a third team league. I'm not going to set up an open one because there's so many about. I think even the season keepers have got one themselves that is open at the moment. Tim Barry's doing one. There's loads doing third teams and stuff. So I'm not just going to infiltrate the market a bit more. Sod that. We'll do it for the patrons. In terms of aiming for a monthly prize,
I mean, how much even is it?
Probably not. No, because a lot of other people will be. It's going to be ridiculously. It's going to be ridiculously difficult under that circumstance to win a monthly one. No, I'm just trying to win the crate of beer that I promised whoever wins the third league.
So FPL Dempsey asks, what teams or players do you think people could potentially overlook at the overhaul? And he's mentioned there that he's not seeing many drafts with Leicester or Arsenal players. And to add to that, Jake Calvert says, you mentioned that Aubameyang could win you or lose you this game. Could Werner now fall into that potential category? I mean, he's quite well priced in this, isn't he?
He could, yeah. He'll lose it for you.
You don't think Timo Werner's got the minerals
even looking at it and going Chelsea 2 games, 2 captaincy, possibly. I won't consider Timo Werner for a moment at the moment. Just don't see enough power in him as a player to be getting a haul, personally. Arsenal, I would overlook, particularly now we know the West Ham game is going to stay in 29. What I would say is from 29 to the end of the season, Arsenal have the best run of fixtures. Okay. So people like Saka, Holding, there's a good chance we'll come back to. But I think at the start, you're looking at Leeds, City, Leicester. And there's other teams going to play 5 or 6 times before Arsenal play Burnley. Then you've got Tottenham. So I think either attack for the Tottenham game on the 14th or the West Ham game. The beauty of the West Ham game as well is assuming they announce the fixtures before the Europa League last 32 is completed, they'll schedule it for a Sunday, the West Ham game. So it might even be something you come off on the Saturday, something you come off the week before. So that's what I'm saying. There might be ones where, say, City Fulham, that's definitely going to be a Saturday, and Arsenal Tottenham's definitely going to be a Sunday. You could move City to Arsenal the next day. You have some money spare, but there's a good chance you're potentially looking at, say, 4-1s or so over City, possibly even 5-6 to 2s because City playing the Carabao Cup final as well. And as I said, they've got the best run of fixtures, in my opinion, from game week 29, Arsenal.
Yep.
Leicester, I agree, potentially being overlooked. Liverpool, not great. Villa, then Arsenal. It depends. I think if that Burnley fixture ends up in 26, if not, then I'm not keen on them. But I could come back. Like someone like James Justin, 6.3, might suddenly become a really good facilitator for me. I think Pereira has been an amazing Sky asset, but I'm not sure I can justify that when the City guys are at a similar price.
And he just hasn't got the form, right? The consistency to give you the confidence to go to Pereira right now.
Maddison, Harvey Barnes, Jamie Vardy, obviously all interesting options. I think it's probably more one that would interest me more, that if they lose tonight and don't have the Burnley fixture moved into the midweek 26, on the other side, they'll have Brighton, Sheffield United, and then Burnley in a row. And that's quite interesting between 27, 29.
Okay, a few questions. I'll give a few people a shout out, but we have been through these. Dav at Davler1234 is asking for captaincy coverage for all the single game days. We have been through that. Kelvin asking about Brighton v Palace captaincy day with a goalkeeper or a defender, or just go with the block City defense. Well, we talked about Lewis Dunk maybe being an option because they've got some good fixtures after that. He has stated that he's definitely not getting Guaita, though. I think a lot of people feel that about Vincente Guaita.
There are a few teams that, for me, I can completely rule out of my thinking, and Crystal Palace is one of them. Nothing for me in terms of the way that you could look at it and go, yeah, Burnley, Brighton, Fulham, United, Tottenham, even then West Brom. But have you seen him without Wilfried Zaha? And I've not got a prognosis on his injury yet.
I mean, he's the only one that is the one that you would want, and he's the one that's injured. So.
Genuinely, if I was buying one, it'd be Gator. I'm not joking. But I justify that over Emi Martinez at the moment, or even Sanchez of Brighton. So Palace are out my thinking. Fulham, almost certainly. The only thing I say about him is, like I said, if I'm in a position where the money is a big problem, I don't mind Adebayo at 5.2 and almost make it a 10-player game for me, and he just sits there. He plays every week. Newcastle, no interest. Sheffield United, no interest. West Brom, no interest. Wolves, no interest.
Got it.
Those teams are completely ruled out of my thinking.
Right. Thank you for. I'm going to skip some of these questions that we've already answered around Chelsea assets and what have you. An interesting question from FPL Canal. If Sky magically doubled your remaining transfer account, how would that change your strategy for the remainder of the season? Would you double down on what we've mentioned in that the next 4 weeks is when you can be really aggressive?
I would possibly go 8 Man City players.
And that gives you more to jump on, jump off. Make the most of the initial.
That's it.
Yeah. Rob Pick, who are the best front three to start with?
It's a really good question. It depends what you want to do with it. So if you're looking to leave your team dead for quite a long period, which I think a lot of people do want to do, then my honest answer for your own sanity is Kane, Salah, Bamford.
Yeah.
That's the three that I would advise from a security point of view. No future headaches on the transfers. If you're thinking longer term, those three. I mean, at the moment, I'm starting with Sterling and Bamford, possibly just the two.
We've got Benny Blanco with limited transfers. Is Antonio looking like a big risk going forward now?
I can't take it.
I can't take that risk either. As much as I love the guy, I just can't do it. Can't take that risk with him. And there's no one really at West Ham that is a suitable alternative. It's literally Antonio's the only one. I don't mind Soufal only because he's cheap, and even Dawson. They're ridiculously cheap in this game, and they're playing week in, week out. But I don't see a lot of clean sheets in the next 6-7 weeks for West Ham. I think we're going to leak the odd goal here or there. So
the other West Ham name being, I mean, we haven't mentioned Thomas Souček, who's obviously an alternative. If you said to me right now, you have to buy Souček or Antonio this week, I honestly, right now, I'd go Souček. I just don't think I can take the Antonio gamble.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I agree with that.
Soufal, if I end up going a West Ham player, almost likely definitely be Soufal. But I think, like I said, the fact that it might be the two Chelsea players, the two Chelsea captaincies for me personally, probably means I'm going to go Chelsea. Honestly, I don't want a Chelsea or West Ham player. I don't particularly want either. The only way I can see me going with a West Ham player, i.e. Soufal, is if I start with Nick Pope. That's the only way I can see that happening. And I think it would be Soufal for me. But then you're saying no clean sheets. And I look at it and go, Sheffield United, great. That'll cover me. What's the best case scenario for Soufal against Sheffield United? 7-pointer? He ain't passing tier. No. 7-pointer, maybe tackle tier, 9-10 if it's a tackle tier. You can't expect the tackle tiers.
No.
Then Tottenham, then Man City, then a big break. And then it's
Leeds and Man United. Yeah.
Leeds and Man United.
I don't see any clean sheets in any of those four.
They're another one, a little bit like with Arsenal. It might be one that you revisit them on Sunday the 14th or Monday the 15th, depending on when they play Manchester United, before they then play Arsenal themselves. Because again, actually, West Ham are another team who have a good run from blank 29 onwards.
Indeed. And we'll leave the last question of the show, James, to Ian Parent at Planet Sky. When the game kicks off, so when he says the next phase of the game kicks off on Saturday lunchtime, he's asked for 3, but we'll do one player. Which player in each position do you think will have the highest ownership? So which goalkeeper do you think will be owned the most? I think Martinez or Ederson or Pope.
I think Martinez. I think you'll
Defender?
I think you'll see interest in Sanchez of Brighton creeping up.
Yeah.
Defender most owned. It's got
Diaz?
Diaz, 100%.
Ruben Diaz.
Fernandes in midfield.
Yep, Bruno, no doubt.
Up front,
Kane.
I think it might be Salah. I mean, Salah might have a little bit more than Kane, possibly. It'd probably be close. Those two won't have the ownership of Diaz or Fernandes, nowhere near. Diaz will be monstrous. Fernandes is going to be 99% or so again. Especially with those, you could make a case for going out Manchester United, but I don't think you can West Brom and Newcastle. I mean, that Newcastle game on Sunday the 21st, you're probably doing that over a a Man City player against Arsenal. I would think. Couldn't look beyond it. Just a shout out for Ian as well, because I watched the Hub last night as well. Great podcast from the guys there with Paul, Andy, and Dan.
Yeah. Definitely need the popcorn for that one, because it's a solid 2 hours, mate.
Ian is a fucking guru on them spreadsheets. I don't think it'd be 100% right, but it wouldn't surprise me because his track record is very good.
Oh, for what's in the future, you mean? I think he did very well with the recent ones, getting them all right. So let's see how it rolls out.
Well, Ian uses theory to make his predictions, and I don't disagree with much of the theory. It'll just be a miracle if he gets 100% out of it.
Yeah, I think it's actually you'd almost want Ian or your or Ben's logical thought process sorting out the fixtures. What we can't trust is that there's anyone, whoever is doing it at the Premier League, is using some kind of logical reason.
Me, Ian, Ben Krellin down at the Premier League, and to be honest, we'd have this all fixed up by midnight on Thursday. Yeah. So we all know what we're doing then. Would be handy.
Yeah, if only life was that easy. So there's a little rundown on the overhaul. Plenty of questions there. I'm sure that there'll be more that will crop up. As James mentioned, it is worth definitely having a listen to the boys over at Hub as well. Andrew and Dan and Ian and Paul as well. So do listen to that.
And Luke did a brilliant podcast. Well worth listening. I think it's with Niall Murphy. I might have that wrong. That he's put on Anchor. I think it's Niall. It might be Neil. Apologies if I got that wrong. But he's like a serial top 50 finisher and gives some brilliant Sky experts. So have a look at Luke's timeline, FF Scout _Luke as well. That's well worth a listen. Really good.
Doing it as we speak. Fantastic. Plenty of Sky content at you. It's a very quick turnaround between now and the end of Overhaul. So I do hope that you get your team sorted, and obviously keep an eye out on Twitter at Planet FPL Pod, where James will give updates on fixtures as and when. Things like knowing that West Ham Arsenal is now still on in FPL game week 29. I have no idea what it relates to in Sky, and so on and so on.
Good luck.
Good luck indeed. We're out of the FA Cup, James, just on a last note. Disappointing yesterday.
This time tomorrow, I expect my team will be as well.
Yeah. To go to extra time and then lose was really disappointing.
It was a shit game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The missus went to me. The missus goes to me because I put Harry to bed, and it was about I don't know, 8:30. It's quite late, but you was 7:30 kickoff, weren't you?
Yeah.
I come back and she went, "What are you taping?" No, I ain't taping anything, love. It's all your shit on the planner. She said, no, I ain't taping nothing. And I was like, it's probably because it's match of the day. He's picked it up on the series link to record it.
Fair play.
She went, do you want to watch that from the start? I was like, no fucking thanks. I've been looking at my Twitter timeline, and the amount of abuse this game's getting, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, it got better. The game got better as it went on. But I think both teams, the first half was pretty dull. The second half got a bit better. I thought both teams actually kept the ball quite well, but all of the possession and passing was in the wrong 2/3 of the field. There was just nothing in the final third of the field. I thought West Ham, second half and even an extra time, did actually pass the ball around quite well. But how much of that was United letting us have the ball and pass it around in the middle third of the field versus us actually being any good? It wasn't the best game. United probably deserved to win. I love the debate on TalkSport this morning, and we'll end it on this ridiculousness, was that Scott McTominay would walk into the West Ham team, but Declan Rice wouldn't walk into the Manchester United team. And by that logic, Scott McTominay is better than Declan Rice. If you can figure that one out. This is on
TalkShite, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, well, that's why I don't listen to TalkShite.
If you can find the logic in that, then you can find the logic in your Overhaul team.
They've found the logic in encouraging prats like you to phone in and waste their money and have a rant and tell them how wrong they are.
James. I didn't phone in. I saved my ranting for Twitter.
I know you didn't. Just while you mentioned United, just to shout out a differential name, potentially is Marcus Rashford for Sky.
Yeah, I was going to. He's
just purely because of Fernandes and the power of the ownership. Not many will go there. I won't go there, for example. But if you're looking for a differential, something to carry you through, to give you that kind of effective plus on Fernandes, it's a shout. Or even just completely go differential. But I don't feel differentials are essential. It's a question we get a lot. differentials. I don't know, guys, again, they were speaking about on Sunday. You can have differentials through the amount of transfers you've got left, the plans you make. If I start with a 3-5-2 and 7 Man City players, I'm not sure anybody else is going to have the same team as me. And that gives me half a chance.
What are your thoughts on, and this is a real left field one, so this is real extra time on anyone that's still listening, even though we were about to wrap up a few minutes ago. Caballero at Fulham.
No.
Because they've got 3 fixtures while a lot of teams have got 1, of which Burnley, Sheffield United are 2 of them. Playing better, need to win. A real short-term punt for up until Saturday the 20th.
I'd rather go Adarabioyo.
Okay. You think defensively and passing tiers is more...
Value as well. When you want to come off Caballero, what are you doing?
Well, I'd have money in the bank, so it would literally be attacking the fixtures.
What price is he?
Anything else? 7.4 million.
Nah, is he a midfielder? He must be.
Midfielder as well. Yeah.
Rafinha's 6.8.
I've already got Rafinha in my squad at the moment.
No, he's a really interesting one, Rafinha. If you got the cojones, I just think it's another one. There's a few cases like this, like Martinez, Grealish, Watkins. We could have done being in 3 different teams, and Dallas, Rafinha, and Bamford's the same. Could have done with them being in 3 different teams because they're all excellent potential assets.
Interesting. Yeah, there we go. Keep racking your brains, listeners. I hope this has helped you at least answer some A or B's or dilemmas around your overhaul. Do tweet at James Planet FPL Pod if you've got other questions. Maybe he will reply if you ask nicely. Anything else to add, or we wrap it up?
Yeah, by all means, if someone wants to DM me or something or tag me, you're more than welcome to. I mean, there's literally no point saying, what's your thoughts? Because we've all got the same money. I'm just going to tell you exactly what my team is. Because we've got the same money. So all I would say is, well, I'm going to do that. So and we're all in the same position. So the tools are out there, be it Ian's spreadsheet, Hub, Scout, Luke's podcast, our podcast, Twitter, all that stuff. At the end of the day, you've got to make your own decision, don't you? And everybody's circumstance is a bit different. So it might be people, we've given certain advice, and it might be people sitting there with 12 or 13 thinking, well, I can't make the luxury of those sort of moves. I ain't going to bother. There'll be other people with 19 or 20 possibly thinking, yeah, shit, I will go with 6 Man City players or something like that. So it's all circumstantial for everybody's individual ideas.
Yeah. Okie dokie. There we go, guys. Thank you for tuning in and all of your support. And we'll be back at you next week to see how the first phase of post-overhaul went for us. Stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Be nice to each other. Good luck, everyone. Cue music, please, man. Sharp.